Gold Pod. We're here for another afternoon pod on a Sunday.
What's your time of day? What's
usually
the
do
primo?
like 7.
Yeah, we usually do 7
Oh,
p.m.
you do
kind
like
of
you're an
thing.
evening.
But that being said,
Yeah.
when Eva was on,
Yeah.
we even called the episode Morning Pod.
Yeah.
Because it was the first morning pod.
Yeah.
Huh.
We were all like wired on
we're-
coffee.
We got a kid, so we gotta.
No, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it because it changes up the vibe. It makes it a little more, it's chill. It's not like it's not a drunken fucking,
I mean, I'm drunk.
You're probably still drunk.
Did you guys celebrate last night?
I celebrate a little bit last night. I don't drink on show nights, so I saved my fun guy time for last night. It was the last show.
Sick.
But I did have a double Caesar just moments ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was waiting for some to go, and I snuck in a little.
Said I might as well have a drink. Well, before we jump too into this conversation, we should give a little intro.
Sure.
We have a guest today, Sebastien Granger from the iconic band Death from Above 1979.
Yep.
Who played 4 shows in a row.
Sold out shows.
Sold out
That's
shows.
insane.
Yeah. 4 sold out shows at the Horseshoe,
Uh-huh.
which is insane
Yep.
for a variety of reasons that we're going to get into. Because, okay, so
You
first
should start
of all,
it off with-
First of
yeah.
all, okay, I had a moment yesterday that like completely blew my mind.
Okay.
Because I was like, the first time I ever saw you guys play was opening for Alexis on Fire
Yeah.
at the Cool House.
Okay. Yeah.
I was 13 years old.
Crazy.
And it was in 2003.
Amazing.
20
and,
years ago.
Did we have rappers?
Did you have rappers?
Yeah. Did we have rappers with us?
No, I don't think so.
I think we did.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
I think we did.
Okay, go on.
There was this band, this rap group called Track Dirty As.
Okay.
And we played a Dan Burke special at the Silver Dollar, and he double booked the night, unbeknownst to anybody involved.
What?
So we were loading in, and there was like another whole other event that was like also loading in, and it was this hip hop night that was happening.
Okay.
And then you just make it work, right? So we did our show, and then they did their show, but we got along. It was like, and they were like, some Scarborough dudes that were great, and we hit it off, and then we got them to come. We were like, "Do you want to come up? We're playing like in a few weeks
Yeah.
at this place," and we just did like rap rock or rap metal or whatever it's called, like new metal. We just jammed, and then they rapped.
Limp Bizkit.
Yeah.
I like.
so
I
sick.
mean,
I'm pretty sure it was that
you
because it was like Silverstein or
it was Coheeding. No, not
Coheeding.
Monine.
oh, is it? Yeah,
Monine?
yeah. That was the show.
Okay,
for sure.
that
It was
makes sense.
show.
Okay,
Yeah.
but my point is, I was like, so I looked up the show. I was like on like one of those like archive show things, and it was 2003, and I was like,
Yeah,
it's 20
yeah.
fucking years ago.
Yep.
It literally blew my mind to the point where I was just like, damn, like.
Yeah, you were in a
I'm old
nostalgia
now.
loop last night because of the H&M across the street too.
So many things just like fucked with me last night in like the
Yeah.
best way
Yeah,
possible.
yeah.
It just really felt like this like not a time is a flat circle thing, but it was like
No, I get that all the time, especially with this band, because I still feel like we're a new band in
Yeah.
a weird way. Like I still approach it in like with the care of something that's new.
Yeah.
And so to look back and see that I've been remaking our website recently, and I'm doing it. We used to have like an archive of all of our shows on our website, and then our website got super corporate for many years, and like it wasn't like that. And you use weird bands in town, weird services to sort of
to just like hyperlink. all your
yeah.
stuff.
So it became kind of crummy, and I've been trying to rebuild the archive. So going back, and I actually through the Internet Archive got our original archive
Really?
from our not our original site, but our second website.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And then, but there was a bunch of missing stuff. I was like, oh, there's a bunch of missing stuff.
Yeah.
All of the 2001 to 2004 was gone.
Yeah.
So I started finding all these weird shows, and I'm like, once I publish the website, I'm gonna try to get people to like submit,
Right. But
if
that's
they
sick.
can remember,
Yeah.
But that's sick because that was also a thing at the time. Like I remember going to bands' websites, like early websites, and it was almost like not a blog, but you kind of had this thing where
Yeah.
you could scroll down and be like, oh fuck, they played there like a year ago. Like I wish
Were you on the message board?
I was.
Damn.
I was, but I was not a poster. I was like a
You're a
shy.
lurker,
I was a
yeah.
lurker.
You're
I
a
was
lurker,
there.
yeah.
My
That's
name was
cool.
Ebolarama.
Hey.
But
Oh, I remember you.
There were some message board people there last night.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, so Andrew,
Yeah,
first
Andrew,
of all,
yeah.
there's a chunk of his friend group
Yeah.
comes from meeting
I know.
on that message board.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
It's such a it was such an early way, because Andrew and I were actually talking about this last night. But there was such an era where, if you're in high school or whatever, in the city or anywhere really, you only really have like maybe one or two people that are like into shit that you're into.
Sure, yeah,
and in a sort of
Yeah, you
early
have to go online.
yeah, and then like a very early internet age, you find all these like-minded people who like connect on like a band,
That's so
and then
sick,
other
yeah.
bands, and it creates this web of just like shit. You're like, holy shit, like
Yeah,
Which is kind of coming back with like Discord.
I think
channels
it
and
is coming
stuff.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It would be impossible for us to re-engage with that world because we're too old.
And there's kind of no point. It's for the fan.
We had that message board there was this woman, Jen Hurst, who worked for, I think, Sony or some label. And we started playing with Billy Talent pretty early because John, the bass player from Billy Talent, I'm also from Mississauga, so I knew those guys from when they were Pez and
Yeah.
Right.
kind of hilarious, like early stuff that I have funny memories of that. But John, the bass player, was a big fan of our band. So even during Heads Up era, he invited us to go play.
Oh,
so
sick.
we went from church basement punk rock stuff to like pot lights and smoke machines. We didn't let them turn the smoke machine on, but we went from like punk to rock stage pretty quickly.
Right.
And we were playing with them in Ottawa or something, and their label woman was there, and we gave her a ride back from the show to Toronto, and she was just like, she kind of laid down this like, oh, these are the things you need. You need like this, and this. And it was like, you need a booking agent, you need a message board, and you need a lawyer or something like that. Okay, so we'll do the message board thing first.
That's the easy one.
And
Find the lawyer on the message board.
And it was amazing. It was amazing.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about that, just because it was the way that we all like kind of like spoke to each other. Like especially in the city, to find things that were like local. Because it wasn't, it's pre-streaming in a sense. I guess it was like MySpace and Pure Volume and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean there was Napster and everything.
I
met people through Napster.
Really?
Was a social
there was
media
there was a chat. There was an online. You could see who was online.
Right.
You could see who you're downloading from.
Yes.
So I was downloading this. Like, there's this band from Australia called Girling that are kind of obscure.
Yeah.
And they had some weird link to Al P, who made our records.
Yeah.
Al P actually grew up with one of the guys from Girling in Mississauga, and then he moved to Australia.
Okay.
So they were just kind of part of the fabric of like my taste then. So I was trying to find this Girling song called Ghost Patrol, and I was downloading it, and then there was just like the person who had it was like, why do you have this song? And it was Andrew Scott, who ended up being in Femme Fatale, which was the proto Death from the band before Death from Above. So I met him randomly at shows, but then through like downloading downloading from his
That's insane.
his folder.
And you guys were both local.
Yeah, I mean, I remember downloading it at my friend Kevin's house in Mississauga on his parents' computer.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the ability to do that.
That's so crazy.
It's kind of, but that's again this like full circle moment where it's like nothing is really changed. Find
this reminds me of what I hear about like the Discord channels of like various things. And
but even when you follow someone on Instagram or something, and you're like, oh, we both follow this. Okay, like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you're into this stuff.
It's more transparent now. Like you can make the connections.
Yes,
they're easier to make.
Yeah.
That was real. Like that's very chancy.
Yeah.
Because you're like peer to peer, then literally meant you're downloading off the person's computer.
Right. Yeah.
Which
if there's only one person that has the song, that's you were going to get it all the way there.
And didn't they have to have their computer on at that time?
Yeah, of course they did. Yeah,
you could just like.
There's no cloud. There was nothing. There's no ether.
Actually, which would make sense as to why there would just be a chat then. Because this
yeah.
person is literally on their computer, and I'm taking the song from them while they also sit at their computer.
That's
I built a chat window. I always wanted a chat window on our website.
Yeah.
No one cares about websites anymore. I understand this. I get that there's like, and I talk to a lot of people on Instagram, so I get that there's technology for that. Yeah. But I always wanted a chat window on our website. Where like if we were online, people could just like talk to us directly. I thought that would be cool.
Yeah.
No one could ever figure out how to like. It was too expensive. It was always like, oh yeah, I'll do that for $2,000.
Yeah,
I'm not.
and then you gotta like pay for the maintenance.
I'm
too.
not going to spend $2,000 to be annoyed by people I don't know on the internet.
And now
You're
that's
like,
probably
so
just
when
a
you wrote
plugin.
But I found this this proto AI called Eliza that it's like, I don't know if you remember these apps where my friend had one that was just it was a parrot that you could ask questions to, and it would answer. You'd be like, hey, you'd ask him a question, and then it was just, there's maybe a series of 200 replies that
Right.
it does, or like, variations of those. And it's this proto AI called Eliza, and I put it on our new website so that people can pretend to chat with us.
Whoa.
But it's like very Socratic. It just keeps
you, like,
asking
program your
how do you feel about
personalities?
saying hello? It's like very. So it'll instantly they'll get that.
Wait,
it's
that's not there now though. That's
No. I haven't gotten around to. Yeah.
Okay.
We still have a very corporate website up. I love how this chat is just about internet.
No, I like it.
It's
You just gotta
inevitable.
let it go. You know,
part of
you
our
never
lives,
really know
man.
where it goes.
We're in our post-corporate period right
So you're
now.
post-corporate.
We're post-corporate. Yeah, we don't have a label. We don't have managers. We
No
left
manager? Just-
no nothing. We have agent, but
Yeah,
we
yeah.
left the system.
Was that a choice?
Yeah,
Is that
it was a
what
choice.
You guys wanted
yeah.
to do that?
Yeah. It's a long time
yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sick. I mean, that's kind of like, I've always said the dream is literally, because you have to go through the system in
Yeah.
order to get to the place
point where you don't have to
let
do
go
You
of it.
do and you don't. Like, people like, John Dwyer and the OCs, like, he didn't go through the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he never
Or,
really did.
Ty Segall, really. Like,
Yeah,
he went
yeah.
through John Dwyer's system,
Right,
essentially.
right. Yeah.
But, like, they created their own system.
Yes.
Yeah.
In this super prolific world of, like, garage rockers that put out 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 records a year.
Yeah.
Which is insane. It's too much music. No one wants that much
It's
music.
way too much.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's incredible because we, another band I play in, American Lips, we opened, we're blessed being able to open for the OCs of the Danforth Music Hall.
Yeah.
And they sold it out.
Yeah, yeah,
They've
yeah.
never been on, Warner Brothers Records,
Yeah,
Universal Records, all this.
but they've
record
just
labels we've been
maintained
on.
like a cult following
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
point
yeah.
where like, because I remember when I used to see them when they used to play. Remember when their thing was playing on the floor, no matter what venue it was, they would just play on the floor. Like I can't tell you how many times I've seen that band
Yeah.
play on a floor.
It's incredible.
John Dwyer, he once punched out Dan Burke. Or
Did he?
Have you not seen that video?
No.
You
Oh,
must
that was
have seen
John.
that.
That was him. Huh? I've
Actually, he
seen.
doesn't punch him out. He smashes his guitar over his
Yeah,
head.
yeah. I forgot that was.
That was Hospital's era.
Amazing.
But going back, so there's another funny thing I had to bring up, which is just again going to this whole fucking time making no sense these days and remembering certain things.
Sure, yeah.
That just like popped up. You guys lived in the beaches.
Yep.
Now, I guess that would have been like what, like 2004
It was 2000.
maybe.
2001.
Okay.
Like that's where the band started.
Okay.
2001.
There's like
In the beaches.
Yeah, literally on 9/11.
Yeah, that's the
Whoa.
whole thing, right? I was watching Eva's doc about it, and it's like this whole band was built in the shadow of 9/11, right? It was because of the leftover equipment and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
Whoa. But the reason I bring the beaches up is because I grew up close to the beaches, went to high school, Malvern, and my girlfriend at the time, we were the again going back to we were the only two people in the beaches, which is a very like preppy like whatever area. Wearing like I'd have like a little tight pink shirt and like girls jeans and a fucking stud belt and checkered Vans, and we'd walk around and people would always like look at us like, oh, look at those, like whatever. And then randomly one day I saw you and Jesse.
Saw some other guys with tight
Didn't know,
pants.
didn't know who you guys were.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, who the fuck are these guys? And then we kept seeing you at the Starbucks on Queen all the time, just
Yeah.
like
I
getting
don't-
coffees or whatever.
I guess we did get coffees. I don't remember being at that Starbucks very often. We went to the Licks a lot.
But I mean, again,
Yeah.
classic.
Yeah,
But any
yeah.
of those places, I
Yeah.
remember just being like, who are these guys? Like, what is going on? But you guys were older and like also very tall. And like, this is, I'm 13 years old, like probably still small. But I was like, who the fuck are these these guys? And then going back to that show, when I went to that Alexa on Fire show, I remember being like, those are the guys. Those are the fucking guys right there.
That's hilarious.
But why were you guys in the beaches? It seems like an interesting choice.
Well, Jesse before the band, so he was in a bunch of like crazy weirdo bands before. Black Cat 13 and a band called Standing 8 and other stuff. Skeeter's Peter. that was his Peter, his Pickering band. But he ended up in finance working at Merrill Lynch, like in like trading.
Okay.
Through, he would tell this story in a very interesting way, but through some kind of crime world connection. Okay, he ends up wearing a suit. He's a punker,
Yeah.
He's
By night.
touring Europe in squats, and then like he was like, when I met him, he was super clean cut. I didn't even think he could grow facial hair. He's just like so clean shaven, but like he had the Spock look going on, like that sort of San Diego hardcore.
Yeah.
So he spent time in that world, in the California hardcore world. So when I met him, he was like very, very clean cut, and he just stopped working at Merrill Lynch, and he had some money. It wasn't like crazy, but he had some money, and his mother and him bought a house in the beaches.
Okay.
So he was, when I first met him, it was through this like, through the kind of suburban punk rock world, and he was starting his band Femme Fatale.
Okay.
And looking for people to play in it, and someone was like, "Oh, this guy can play drums," and so he scouted me and my best friend from kindergarten, Kevin, to play guitar, and Andrew Scott, and there's a bunch of other people. It was like a 7-piece hardcore band, and then he was also like looking for people to live with because he was buying this house. He needed roommates to pay the rent, right?
Yeah.
And I was living in Little Italy, and then he was just like, "Yeah, I'm buying this house, and you want to come live there?" And that's how it all started.
Because it definitely like stood out as this thing where I kept just being like, it literally felt like you guys were just like transported there, and you're just like confused. Like it was like you weren't supposed to be.
No. It was a weird place to live. But he's he's from like Pickering and East York and stuff. So like he still doesn't understand the West End.
Right.
Like he doesn't understand it at all.
I mean, I'm an East End guy too, so I respect.
So
that.
he, it was, and when we first lived there, he wasn't even living there. I was living there during we were renovating stuff, and I was like living in the house, and he was still in Pickering at his parents' house.
Okay.
So he would kind of like.
Did you guys jam there and stuff too?
Yeah.
That must have been liberating to be able to own the spot that you were jamming at.
Yeah, but it was like our neighbors hated us, even though it was a detached house. It's basically the first house on Waverly.
Okay. North of
behind there's like an alley, or not even an alley. It's just like behind those businesses.
Okay.
It's like the first house on Waverly.
Damn.
Yeah, and our neighbors, they hated us because we just it wasn't like we didn't put up soundproofing or anything.
Yeah.
It was jamming.
It was an unfinished basement. We just played.
But it wasn't for recording.
No, we made some recordings.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
That's probably the biggest thing that's like affecting bands right now. Is just the inability to make noise in the city.
Well, you even said it last night.
Yeah.
You
I
were
mean,
just
that's why things like whatever trap, hip, I don't know what names of music genres, but like electronic music,
it's
producer-based music. That's why that's like the vanguard of like innovation, is because kids can do that for free with headphones on. They don't have to make noise.
Yeah.
And it's like who's the drummer in Crass, Penny Rimbaud, right?
Yeah.
He's like, admittedly was like kind of a bourgeois guy, right? Like he had kind of some money. But you have to have some money to be a drummer.
To have space.
You need to buy some drums, which are expensive. You have to have some space to make noise, right?
Yeah.
So the drummer will always like, invariably be the guy that like their parents have a little bit of cash.
Right. True.
A little bit of spare cash. So, and rock and roll now is like, it's almost like an elite endeavor because
it is, yeah.
You need to be able to afford.
Well, it's
things.
I've been going through this exact thing because I did a classic, switch where I got back into like playing in like a band, started a band.
Yeah.
And like, thank God I still had stuff that was just like lying around in my parents' basement that was like good stuff that I bought years ago.
Yeah.
But I was just like kind of like not even crunching the numbers. I was like, oh God, I gotta get an amp. I gotta get my guitar fixed. My pedals, I sold my pedals, gotta get new pedals. And like also the prices, like not to talk about inflation, but they're just like I was like, oh, 200 pedals like $60. I was like, oh no, not anymore. Like things like that. It's just but do you think because I kind of feel like there is a bit of a pendulum swing happening where, like you were saying, with everybody with sort of beat music or headphone music, things you can just make in the box. I feel like people are kind of like striving for like that live sound again. That's
Yeah.
just me, but
You know, they've been saying this for many years.
I know that.
when we hired this guy, this like really big music mogul guy, Gary Gersh, he's like in every making the band, you know, historical whatever, he's a talking head. He's like, because he's
Yeah.
Nirvana's dude.
Okay.
And so we ended up hiring him as a manager at some point in our career, which is strange.
I mean, even a name like that just sounds like a
Gary
music
Gersh
industry
Sounds
guy.
like an important guy.
There's a whole story with him too, but you know, he was like, you know, it's coming back. Things are coming back.
Bands are coming back. We're
Yeah,
looking for the
grunge is
next
coming
Kurt Cobain.
back, buddy. You know,
I think now at this point, it's safe to say that just like everything is like cool. You know what I
Everything
mean?
everything's back in some degree.
Yeah, it's
whether
like-
it's
It's back
niche.
again.
Yeah, time is a flat circle.
But I guess, it is funny that over the years there's just been so many times where, yeah, this thing has happened where it's been like, no. Now everyone's back into like hip hop and electronic music, and then people are like, no, bands are back.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, we're playing synths again. It's just like, it's always gonna be that.
Yeah.
And I think now we're finally just at a point where it's just like, we can all exist.
Well,
We
there's
can all
so many
exist.
fucking
it's
people. on
weird
this
though, because
planet.
back in the day, like my taste was dictated by what was available, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And what was available was something that was in the physical space. It was like I listened to like CFTR radio on AM.
Yeah.
And when they changed formats, my taste just changed with it, you know?
Yeah.
Like it went from whatever it was, like some like, you know, house music, like whatever kind of like 90s
Yeah.
pump up the jam type thing,
Yeah.
to something else. And like when it changed format, then my
Well,
my
what did it
taste
change
changed.
to?
I think it went to like a modern rock,
Okay.
or like a current rock,
Right,
contemporary
right.
rock thing.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not sure. There's like you could definitely find the history of it, but like and then it moved to the FM dial.
Yeah.
And then you discover FM stuff.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there was that weird. I'm 44, so
Yeah.
it was like I have that where, and also back in the day, and you probably remember this partially, but like people were defined by like the genres of music that they liked.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
100%.
You couldn't be like into rap music and rock music. You
Yeah.
had to pick a side. You know?
Here's
Yeah.
a funny thing about you
Yeah.
guys that was like, we were talking about this before you got here. One, so back when I was in high school, me and my girlfriend definitely I was more the like into kind of punk and hardcore and like, you know, Blood Brothers and kind of the
Sure,
sort of
yeah.
weirder stuff
Yep.
like that. And she was more like, you know, the indie rock, Strokes, Velvet Underground kind of thing. And we both liked each other's music, but we very much had our sides. Like I'd always joke that she was like a Converse girl and I was like a checkered Vans guy.
I know exactly that. I know exactly that dichotomy.
But the reason I bring it up was because Death from Above was pretty much the first band that we like completely agreed on
Bridge the gap.
for like
Yeah.
different reasons.
Yeah.
You know, it was like this had what I needed, but also had what she needed.
Yeah,
And we were
we're like the Ottolenghi cookbook of rock and roll, where we just bring both sides
it merged
together.
worlds though.
Yeah.
It was like it's it's funny to think about. But so going back to these 4 shows, like
Yeah.
how did that feel? Just like, because when was the last time you would have even played the horseshoe?
20 years ago.
Yeah,
Damn.
exactly.
Yeah, 20 years ago.
And like, was the horseshoe like the choice? Because I mean, I guess
Yeah,
I
so
guess it's
we-
like the only one left, really.
We stopped being managed in the new year, and it coincided with the label we were on deciding not to take the option on our next record, which is what we wanted.
Yeah.
We wanted to be free.
Yeah.
And it all happened in one day. So we're like in a second we're like self-managed. And
Yeah,
so we're
yeah.
like, so what do we want to do?
Sick.
You know? And we talked to our agents, and on that first phone call with them, just like a catch up, like, oh, okay, what's the future going to be for, you know, or what, are you going to get a new manager? What, blah. And we were just like, no, we're going to just like ride it out, see what happens. If something spectacular comes out of the woodwork,
Yeah.
maybe we'll consider it. But it's like, no, we can, we can forward emails.
Right. Yeah. We can CC people.
Yeah, definitely CC. And on that first phone call, we were like, because we haven't really played. We put out a record 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and we didn't really do like a record release or anything
Right.
because of the circumstances. And
Yeah.
so, even though we did play Toronto on our last tour, we didn't do anything special in Toronto, you know.
Right.
So we're like, let's do something special in Toronto. Can we? And literally, I was like, can we do 3 shows at the Horseshoe?
Yeah.
You know, why can't we do that? And they're like,
Yeah.
of course we can do that. And then they hung up, and then that afternoon we're like, how about, you know, April 27, 28, 29? I was like,
Yeah.
perfect. Yes, let's do that.
Yeah.
It was our
Sick.
first thing we did as a self-managed band.
Right.
So
Which is
yeah,
kind
it
of
was
the-
our choice, and it was like we're coming up to 20 years of our first LP
Yeah.
in next year, and we're planning to kind of honor that and celebrate it and do a tour and do other stuff
Oh, sick.
around it.
Awesome.
So in anticipation of that, we wanted to just do some cool stuff that's
Yeah.
like that makes us kind of grounds us to like what the whole thing is.
Yeah, it's like a full circle moment to just
Yeah.
be like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's and honestly, like, even we didn't do it for a business reason. We did it because we thought it'd be cool.
Yeah.
But it was, you know, like in a business sense, it's better than doing
Like one big show.
one big show.
Yeah.
Because a big show, the venue costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of other expenses and yada yada, you know. But like you know, if you can make it work,
Yeah.
it's like, and it's better, you know, maybe the sight lines aren't the greatest at the Horseshoe, right? But
Yeah.
it's like, it's a better experience for, I mean, I would rather see something there,
Yeah.
you know?
Well,
Do
I
you prefer playing at a smaller venue?
I wouldn't say I prefer it, but there's definitely it's definitely a different experience.
Yeah.
Like the sort of, okay, I'll say I prefer it. I do prefer it. Yeah.
Sick.
There's something cool about doing a weird big thing.
Yeah.
But and I like that. I've settled into that, you know, and
Yeah.
I like it. But there's nothing beats like sharing air with people.
Yeah. And even just like there's
That
that sense
intimacy.
of chaos too, where like even when I was like watching you guys, it was like people were like climbing on stage and stage diving and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And like there's nothing more annoying than, you know, your pedals or things getting moved around and
Yeah,
unplugged.
Yeah. Oh,
But at the
our tech pooch was just he was just falling apart the whole time. He hates it. He hates it so much.
But it's like, but that's
That's
kind of
part- that's the whole- that's part of
that's
it,
like
yeah.
that's
we
like,
have one of my friends and him have beef because a few years ago we were playing in Vancouver and like my friend got up on stage and was like dancing and like he like kicked him off the stage. Get off my stage! And they're still like, I was like,
even years later. Just
yeah,
like,
yeah,
no.
There's still beef.
Get off my stage.
My
that's
stage,
that's such a tour manager. Like,
He's not even a tour man. He's
sorry.
their stage. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
a
just-
very talented technician.
Yeah.
He cares.
He
good.
cares.
He
Yeah,
cares.
But because I wanted to. Okay, so there's obviously we don't need to do the whole. You know, the band broke up and then came back. Because I'm sure you've probably talked about it.
We can sum it up.
Okay.
We broke up early.
Yeah.
We broke up pretty much right away.
Well, because
Yeah.
I was even
We
reading.
got it out of the way because bands break up. They get old and they break up.
Yeah.
When it's stupid, it's like, why are you?
Yeah, like at
it's
this
point.
dumb. Like at this point, who cares? You know.
Yeah.
Like if Spoon broke up tomorrow.
Yeah.
you'd be
Yeah.
like, why did Spoon break up?
Yeah. What could
Just
possibly happen
who's
now?
the shitty guy in the band? Just kick him out of the band.
Yeah, there's ways to rectify this.
I picked a band that probably never break up. They look like such good friends. But we
listening
got it
to
out of the way and we dealt with all of this stuff
Mm-hmm.
that was like, that could have been a problem.
Right, like down the line, I guess. Yeah.
You confronted it right off the
Yeah,
right
yeah,
off the bat.
Yeah.
But
Anyway.
like, well, first of all, I was also reading about. I didn't know that you guys were asked to do the Daft Punk tour.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, arguably one of the most like
Iconic
tours of the last,
yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah, yeah.
like years.
Yeah.
Like,
It set the bar for everybody.
yeah,
That
it's
tour
like,
set-
and it also like, I guess like set the bar for like festival, like, you know what I mean? It
Mm-hmm.
was like very often festival shows can be tough
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, the stage is so massive and blah, 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 especially for something like, you know, technically DJs,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like it's like, what do you do other
Yeah.
than just like play the songs and to like have this like, you know,
Did you go to that show at Arrow Hall?
you know, I regret it
You didn't do
every
it.
day of
You
my
didn't get on the
life.
bus?
I didn't go. I don't remember why. I do remember why, but I'm not going to get into it. Got into a fight with somebody and I didn't end up going.
I think something that was sick when I was watching the documentary was I think Eva kind of played it like that Austin, Texas show, South by Southwest show was like kind of at the beginning of the career, or at least this is the way, because I didn't know that whole timeline of it. So it was set up so that this was the beginning and then there was the breakup and it was kind of over. But then when it comes back in and it's revealed that it's obviously, you know,
A current show.
a current show,
Yeah.
and it's like after the breakup.
Right,
It
right.
shows kind of like the best is yet to come. So like hearing you say that we got it out of the way
Right,
makes
right.
so much sense to me
Yeah.
in relation to that.
I mean, in retrospect, it's like it was such a blip. You know, we've been together for like since we got back together in 2011, right?
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
been, and we were only together for like 4 or 5 years before that.
Right.
So you'd been broken up longer than you'd been a band.
Yeah, we were broken up for longer than we were a band, and we've been a band again longer than we were a band or broken up. Like
Right.
Yeah.
This period is longer than the
Yeah.
2 periods together.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
Well,
and
'cause
it really seems like a blip. Like at the time, it seemed like an eternity. It seemed
Yeah.
like a lifetime.
Yeah.
Like 2005 to 2011 or 2006. It felt like a lifetime.
And
yeah,
did-
things-
And it was, you know.
Yeah,
it was a
things
lifetime.
change and
Yeah.
like the musical landscape changed over like a
Sure,
couple
yeah,
of
yeah.
times.
We missed the entire like the social media boom. We
Yeah,
missed
yeah.
it.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
I mean, you can't catch up. You know, you can't
Yeah.
catch up.
Right,
we're just
right.
like we're always gonna be. We missed.
Yeah.
We missed, which is cool because
Yeah,
we're
it's
still a
kinda-
call
yeah,
band.
It's kind of sick. I'm kind of into that. You know, it's like,
But it felt like that band, like you guys probably felt like that band was done, but 2005 to 2011. Like, was there any idea in your heads?
No, it was zero. Yeah, it was absolutely.
That's
done.
just
crazy.
done.
Completely done.
and it was never a hiatus. It was a breakup.
It was full on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
This
I
was
remember-
done.
I remember
You guys
it
were doing your own
happening, but
things.
Yeah. There was like no going back.
Yeah. But when you guys came back, so was South by the first show?
It was the first show. Yeah.
And because I remember, I mean, I wasn't there for that, but I remember reading about that, and it was like, but I feel like this chaos like follows your band or you even, because this reminded me a lot of, and I wanted to talk to you about this separate thing, but I remember when, I can't remember the name of the song, but you sing on a fucked up song,
Yeah.
and you guys performed it at MTV,
Yeah.
and my friends went. And I remember watching it because it was MTV Live.
Yeah.
And like, was that not one of the most like chaotic things? Like,
I mean, it was in retrospect. I mean, not in retrospect. At the time, it's like that we could have all died.
yeah, because
Damn.
wasn't there like a gas leak or something?
There was they thought it'd be cool. I think the song is called
motorcycle.
First Son or Firstborn Last or something.
Yeah,
I can't remember
twice born.
Twice Born or Firstborn. I
Yeah.
can't remember the name of the song.
Yeah,
But yeah, I sang on the record, and then they were like, "Oh, we're gonna play it on MTV," and they thought it'd be cool to play in the bathroom, and they thought it'd be cool to drive a motorcycle into the bathroom, and furthermore, they thought it'd be cool to spray paint and light fires and do that kind of stuff.
Holy shit.
You know, I'm in a stall playing. Like singing this song, I was wearing a hard hat and overalls.
I remember. Yeah. You're literally in the stall, like
this
standing on a
is
toilet.
like how like poor man's like Ice Cube I am. I wrote the record release date of my solo record on the hard hat and everything. Like drop the website, drop my
Some
website.
guerrilla marketing.
Which
be a lot of eyes on
did not
this.
track at all. If you could do a Google analytic on it, it did not move the needle whatsoever. But yeah, we played this song in the bathroom, and they we broke the bathroom, and the motorcycle fell over and leaked gasoline, and there were open flames in
And
the
people
bathroom.
were smoking.
And there were people smoking, and there were kids in the room, like fans that were invited to the show. So like that could have all been terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was in a sense that, they were fined some crazy, they had to pay money.
Like the band were.
Yeah.
Or MTV was. They. Oh
No,
shit.
the band. I don't know if they ended up, I don't know what ended up.
Yeah.
happening. It's none of my business. It's none of my
But I
business.
remember watching that, and especially because I remember my friends going.
Yeah.
And I remember my friend Luke being like, basically telling me the story. I feel like I must have saw him like maybe later that day because it's probably like in the afternoon or something.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Man, that was fucking crazy." Because I think they had set up the motorcycle to block the fans. There was some because it was a legit bathroom. So you guys were in a bathroom, and then there was a crowd in like the hallway that's like, connects to the bathroom. And I feel like, again, like, a bunch of like punk kids at this like free matinee hardcore show on live television, of course,
Yeah,
they're
they're
going
gonna
a
go
little nuts
hard.
with it. And I remember it was the kind of thing where, like, according to him, as soon as that like first, strum happened, people just rushed into the bathroom.
Right. Yeah. That's probably what happened. Yeah. I knocked over the motorcycle.
Hence the gas leak.
It's funny though. Like, I talked to Damien about it, and my perception of that band is of kind of, chaos, and he's kind of an agent of chaos, and that's part of the role. You know,
Right.
it's like in the less fecal tradition of Gigi Allen.
Yeah, well, he used to cut himself and stuff too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and I seen that a bunch of times. So like you kind of assume that like he's totally cool with it.
Yeah,
but
he's-
like it breaks him up. You know, like he was like has anxiety about that still.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't think someone like that would be
You wouldn't
affected.
think because I don't carry any of that stuff.
Yeah,
It doesn't,
yeah.
You know, I think it's fun and it doesn't bother me.
That's so interesting, actually. That's
Yeah.
damn.
So then when there's all this like, the infamous like riot at South by Southwest,
Yeah.
like were there any of these like at any of these moments did you feel like I guess you just said you felt unsafe at that, but like how do you like
I didn't feel unsafe at the time. I was
Yeah.
I was totally in it,
Right.
going with it. It was only just like
Yeah.
after
Being
the post game assessment where you're like, there's open flame and gasoline in this tiny room.
could have literally exploded. It's
Could have literally,
fucked.
yeah.
It's so fucked. But so then going into the South by show then,
Yeah.
that must have been like, because would that have been, well, that was definitely after.
It was
Yeah.
after. Yeah, it was definitely after.
So then, did you
That
start-
was 2009-ish.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the South by would have been what, 2011?
2011, yeah.
Okay. So then what exactly happened? Because like I've read about it. I remember it happening.
Well, full disclosure, we knew that it was going to be wild.
Yeah.
We knew that it was going to be crazy. We didn't announce that we were playing.
Okay.
We had announced Coachella.
Yes.
That we were doing Coachella. And we didn't announce that we were doing anything at South by Southwest. But we went down and Mastercraft played the night before, and I like made I made an appearance. I fucking went to the show. But people saw us together,
Yes,
so it
yes.
was like all of a sudden it's like, oh, these
Little
guys are
chatter,
together.
Right. Yeah.
And then, that day it came out that we were playing, and so there was a lot of it. But we knew what we thought was, what we were told was there was this tiny, it was a smallish venue in a
Yeah.
tent behind Beauty Bar, and there was a fence, and they were going to open the fence when we started playing. That was what we were told. So we're like, okay, so we're playing a
Okay.
small venue,
Yeah.
but they're going to open it. It's going to be festival style. People are just going
Right,
to be able
people
to
can come
in,
and,
right? You
yeah.
don't need tickets. You just show up, right?
Yeah.
So that was what was sold to us, the
Yeah.
concept. And then when we got there, it seemed like they didn't intend to open the fence up. And so we just we were in the moment, we were going with it, and we started playing. And then, pretty much instantly people tried to get in, and they took the thing down, and then it was like, riot police and horses were
Yeah, they had
injured
fucking
and-
horses.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
insane. But seeing that fence come down is so sick. It's
Yeah,
insane.
it's cool.
That's
It's
hilarious.
So,
that
it's
they were-
funny watching it because I don't reminisce about that stuff often, but I was building this website for us, and there's a bunch of video content on it, and I watched some of that content, and it's so funny how it's dated. Like you look and look at what people are wearing.
Yeah, look at these
Look at
guys.
these guys. Like what is up?
These
And it
funny
feels
hats.
like now for me, it just feels like a continuation of like the moment,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you look back and you're like, oh, that was 12 years ago now.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
people
yeah.
were kind of wearing whack shit, and it's funny.
But I mean, that's always going to be the case.
Of
When you look
course, of
back
course,
at
of
anything,
course,
you're just
of
like,
course.
you're like, oh, look at me, look at myself.
But all these things are so good for like the notoriety of DFA. Like those moments
yeah,
are so
yeah.
sick. It
So-
really
so then,
add to
well,
the appeal.
With that whole thing, how do you feel about the like indie sleaze revival?
I'm down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
you
down.
feel like, do you
Makes
feel
sense.
like it's like, because I feel like again, it's. I feel like timing with you guys has always just been so perfect.
I feel the opposite. I feel the opposite.
But I mean that, like, we'll talk about like the 2003, 2004 era for when I
Sure.
was like
Uh-huh.
first discovering your music. It was like, that was so at that time. It
Mm-hmm.
was like this thing where I was just like, holy shit. And then when you guys came back, it was like perfect timing to like come back. Because, I mean, clearly it was because, there was a fucking riot.
Right.
And then, when you like fast forward to even now, just having had the band just continue on from now, it's like, it's now there's like a renewed interest that I'm assuming you probably have like young kids who are like, definitely weren't there. Because so Austin and I were talking about this because like he's younger, he's 25.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm 34. And I was curious asking, I was like, how much do you know about like Death Room of 1979? Because like, in again a very early pre-social media internet age, it's like when you guys broke up, he might actually fit right into the age group where he would have completely missed it.
Yeah,
Where it's just like when you were getting into like whatever.
Yeah, I think I listened to your music when you guys were like getting back together and had no idea that it was a reunion at all.
Right.
You know, it was just like, this is a new band to me.
And I think there's like definitely a gap of people that are like mid-20s that might have missed that. But then I feel like there's now a new younger group of people who are just like discovering you for the first time, as opposed to this sort of reunion type thing.
I mean, it's definitely true. I'm not a witness to it in any way that it's nothing I'm noticing.
Yeah.
But I've always felt that that's kind of the purpose of making records and being, not the purpose, but I'll put it this way, like, you can still, and I've said this in interviews before, and it always comes up that you can walk down a street and look up into a child's bedroom. I'm not telling you to climb a tree. I'm saying you can casually look up. You can hear a bird and glance upwards, and you can look into a room, and who knows if a child lives there. But there might be a Jimi Hendrix poster on the wall.
Right.
So it's like, Jimi Hendrix will always be new to somebody. He was new to me. When I discovered Jimi Hendrix, I thought, like, what a revelation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Same thing with the Beatles, the biggest bands in the world.
Yeah.
And I discovered them on my own, independently of my parents' record collection. It was just like something that I found somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
And that'll always happen. You know, there are people who discovered us during the breakup, and we were like this niche cult esoteric thing, you know, and we were precious to them, and they were sad that we didn't exist, you know?
Yeah.
So there's definitely, you know, children, and I mean, the way I receive it, which is
Children.
no, but literally the children of people that were friends of our band.
Right.
Like my dad, you know, people will write on Instagram, it's like, you know, can you play my dad's birthday? He's a big fan, or something like this, you know, but also I love your band, and people bring their kids to the shows. And I mean, your experience being 13 and seeing us open for Alexis on Fire. I was playing in a band with Josh Reichman, and we were opening for Holy Fuck in Sudbury. And this guy, like a normal, you know, 20-something-year-old adult male, came up to me, and he said, you're the first. I saw Death from Above when I was 13, and you were the first band I'd ever seen. I'd never seen a band, and you were the first band I'd ever seen. And we were aware of that at the time. We were aware that if we went from, like, you know, the kind of obscure punk suburban whatever scene, which was a short period of our band. It wasn't like we were in the trenches for a long time.
Right.
Of course, we were in a van for a long time, but like we transcended, if I could say that, to like the rock stage, knowing that opening for bands, you're going to get kids that are, it's their first show. And when you're opening a show, you're the first experience with rock and roll they're going to have. The very first. And that happened a bunch in that period, you know? And that is precious, because I have those memories of the first time I'd seen bands, and you cannot replace that.
My first show was Alexis on Fire, and
Ever?
that changed my
concert, and it changed. It's funny that you're both mentioning Alexis on Fire. So we were, you know, we're older than them by a couple of years, and when our band started, you know, Much Music was still a thing that was happening. Like, people were still making videos and playing them on TV, and we were like, you know, we were into weird stuff and 70s music and classic rock, and you know, the band was born out of this like very fertile like amalgamation of Jesse's record collection, what I was listening to and what we were doing and what I was playing on my acoustic guitar in the room and what he was playing, and then, you know, like it was this very little, like this little world that we lived in. And then when we looked at what was happening in the scene, like, so the first time we talked to a booking agent, or this woman, Jen Hurst, was like, meet a booking agent. There's this guy, Glenn Vogelsang, went and met him. He was at the show last night. Hadn't seen him in like 20 years. But anyway, we were sitting across the table from us, and he was like, okay, what are some bands that you want to play with? At the time, I thought The Darkness were incredible. Because that song, you know.
I believe in a thing called love.
Well, it was before that. It was like the very first video. He was wearing a leotard. It's like,
I actually do
Get
know
Your Hands Off My Woman. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. I'm like a singing nerd, and this guy's got a crazy voice, and like, I love Queen and all that stuff. So I was like, this is incredible. And it was funny. I love funny music.
There's a level of comedy to it.
Yeah. They're not a comedy band.
No, but
but
I
it's
mean,
like, there's
Yeah.
a sense of humor, right?
Yeah.
So, and I love that. And like at this meeting with Glenn, he's like, what are bands that you want to play with? I was like, I want to play with The Darkness, and I do not want to play with Alexis. like I don't want to play with any screamo, like kids screaming with a guy singing. Like, it was, what is this? What's that band? Not Limp Bizkit. What's the band with the rapper and the singer?
Linkin Park.
Linkin Park. I was like,
Linkin
it was
Park,
Linkin Park, like, you know, Linkin Park with tight jeans. Like, I'm not into it. I was like, this is daycare music. It's for you know.
It really is. I listened
But
to
within weeks, we were on tour with it.
but I listened to an old Taking Back Sunday live set. You remember Taking Back Sunday?
Of course.
Like Jason. And just like I liked that band when I was like 13, maybe younger, and then watching them live, I was like, "What the fuck is happening here?" Like this guy, I don't know. It's really different when you see that shit live, and
But it was
understand the context.
Well, how did you guys get sucked into that then? Because like
It's because it was
so
what was
different.
going on.
Right.
It's what
because
was
it doesn't
happening.
actually make sense when I like think about it.
No.
Like really.
No, but our band doesn't make sense in any like it didn't make sense for us to be on those shows.
Yeah.
We were weird. People
Yeah.
didn't like it.
Yeah.
So the first part of like that transition of, you know, going onto the rock stage, that's where we kind of like became a more confrontational band because no one wanted us to be there, you know. So we played loud, and I didn't look at the audio. We faced each other, which we still do.
Yeah.
And we were like insular. We were doing it for each other.
Yeah.
And it was a real like, fuck you, you know.
Yeah.
You're getting what you paid for kind of thing. You know?
Yeah.
And that was the attitude. We were a little bit older, like, you know, not older, but I was 23, 24.
Yeah, you weren't just
know,
like a
I was
teenage
your
band.
age. And Jesse was 2 years older than me, or 3 years older. So it was like, we weren't teenagers, you know, so we had some perspective and something to say.
And like a confidence that you only get like as you get older. You're just like, no, this is the band.
Yeah. And our band before that, like Femme Fatale, was a very confrontational, like it was a very aggressive sounding band, you know.
Yeah.
So when you guys started out then, was the intention always to be bass and drums?
No. Jesse made the first like 3 demos, which were just bass and drums. And his intention was we were going to start a band called The Gift there's this guy, Conan, who we like, our social world was like the Britpop stuff in Toronto, like Blow Up and Mod Club. Like that was where we would go drink and, you know, drink, just like pick up someone else's bottle of beer and just like that's how I would drink then. Like I probably only had $20 and I'd pay cover, you know, if I did, and then just drink the bottoms of beer bottles. But that was our social scene. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, that's also an interesting era because this is before my time, but like so many people have brought up this mod scene in Toronto, which I kind of weirdly feel like doesn't really get talked about or written about that much at all.
I mean, Davey Love, who ran Blow Up, he's still around. I recently like friended him on Instagram because I want to know if anyone documented that era, you know, and if anyone, because it probably would if you look back, it would probably look like shit. But like at the time, it felt very cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, because even like we've like Brendan Canning talked about it, Rob Gordon talked about it, Jen Egg talked about it.
Yeah.
Like everyone brings up this mod scene, and it's like, and like Dance Cave and stuff, and it's just like,
well, we wanted our records because Jesse's girlfriend at the time, Robin, her brother DJ'd at Dance Cave.
Okay.
I forget what party it was. It wasn't one of the mod ones, but it was kind of a modish Britpop-ish party. And he was the first guy to play our song like in a club. Like we brought like the recordings of Heads Up and like put it on.
Like a CD? Like
yeah. And he played it. I was like, fuck yeah.
That's so sick.
Yeah.
But going back to that, so the intention was never for it to be a bass and
sorry.
drums
So
duo.
there was a guy that looked almost identical to Gary Newman, and but he did not know who Gary Newman was. So there's this cool, like weird looking guy, and he had like a cool, weird looking girlfriend, and everyone dressed so like if you could afford to. I dressed like shit, but if you could afford to dress well, like they were mods, right? They were like they were dressed that way.
Yeah.
And he had bleached blonde hair, slicked back, and he like looked crazy. And so we were like, we need to start a band with that guy because he looks cool. And the idea was to do that. Jesse and I would play. That we would. he would make really simple bass and drum parts.
Yeah.
We would get some other jokers to play those parts.
Yeah.
And we would play very complicated guitar over it.
Yeah.
And then we get this guy to sing. That was the idea.
And it was called, sorry, The Gift?
It was going to be called The Gift. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, 90% of Jesse and I's like social life was in his car. We would drive around and do stuff. And he played me those first 3 songs, which were, Dead Womb and Do It and Too Much Love, probably.
Yeah.
And it was just bass and him playing bass and drums. And I was like, this is enough. Like, this is a band here.
Wow.
This sounds like a band to me.
Yeah.
Doesn't need anything else. Like all of the, what he still does, like writes very melodic bass parts.
Insane.
And it's he's crazy. So he made it sound crazy, and it sounded like there's no space for anything else anyway.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And that's,
so, and it wasn't long before, I was like, oh, I'm just going to write some words. And we actually had a friend of ours, a younger friend, Leon, who runs Union Sound now.
Yeah, I know Leon.
And he played in my solo band for many years. We went to high school together. We invited him over. He just moved back from Ireland, and we invited him to play drums. And he was playing drums with Jesse in the basement. They were like running through the stuff, and I was upstairs in the kitchen, like kind of writing and singing and trying to determine, should I sing low or should I sing high, and whatever these like ideas that I thought were my choice, which they were not. And then after Leon left, I sat down on the drums and started playing and like working out the stuff I just written.
Yeah.
And I sang high because I couldn't hear myself when I sang low. In front of that sound, and I could do it. I was like, I can do this. I can play drums and sing.
So because that's a whole other thing.
It was like it was an afternoon, the decision.
And it was just like
Crazy.
this. You just like locked it in, and was like, this is it. We don't need, because
it sounded to us like pretty soon. It was like, this sounds like fucking Foo Fighters. It sounded so poppy compared to what we're doing,
right.
And compared to what I was doing personally, which was like singer songwritery, 4-track recording, Elliott Smith, Jeff Buckley, like this kind of like kind of jazzy Beatles, melodic soft guy world, like that's where I was coming from. And so to go into like a world where I'm like rock singing or whatever, it just sounded like the radio to me. Even though it's not, like it's like.
Are there historically other drummer singers? I can't.
Yeah,
think
like
of
Don Henley and Levon Helm.
True.
From the band, and who else? There's a few.
Yeah, but it is such a it is. It's one of those things that like
they're usually it's usually a soft drummer. Singing softly. Because the girl from Haim plays drums and sings sometimes. She does a great job.
I guess you're right. I guess there's more than you realize. But I always found it interesting because, like I said, it is something you don't see very often. And because your band has 2 things that you don't see very often: a duo with where it's bass and drums, and then you throw in drummer singer just to fucking.
It was not. There was no template when we did it. I can say that we were part of we created a template.
Well, were you ever worried at any point that like people would view you guys as like a novelty act?
They did. We weren't worried about it. They did. You didn't have to worry about it. It was happening. Like it was, more common than not for people to come up after our show and say, I play guitar. Do you want
you need a guitar?
You need a guitar player.
You need me in here.
But it's always funny because like
as if you just couldn't find a guitar player the entire time.
Oh shit, we don't have a.
Have people?
You're right.
Holy shit! What happened to Jim?
I hadn't even thought about it.
But have people ever sent you like? I'm just thinking of this right now. But have people ever sent you guys like versions of your songs with guitars added? Like, did that ever happen?
Probably. Like people do like chip tune versions,
right.
They do cover versions and stuff.
But I more mean someone with the sort of like ego to be like, well, here's what the song could be.
Right.
Like, has anyone ever done that?
No. I've thought about like getting like friends of mine that play guitar, like cool, like famous people to come do stuff sometimes, but we've just never done it. There's a risk there too. Like, do you remember the band Priestess? Like a metal. I'm very good friends with Vince Nudo, the drummer in that band. Who, when we first played with him, I was like, this guy's gonna be terrible. There's no such thing as no drummer's that good looking. It's gonna be terrible. And then he played. He was like 1,000 times better than me. And then I was like, yeah, but so what? He's a good drummer. Who cares? He looks really nice. Well, who cares? And then he sang a tune and his voice was better. And I was like, oh, this.
You're like this.
Anyway, they made a record and they asked Steve Howe from Yes to be on the record, the guitar player from Yes. And they were like, because they love Yes. I love Yes. And they were like, this is iconic. And he agreed to do it, and they sent him the track, and he sent back some fucking dog shit guitar solo. And I think they had to cut it. So it's like that's the risk you take, It's like, do you we could ask some cool person to do something.
Yeah.
And then,
who would you ask if
I don't know.
It's just hypothetically, if you were just for fun.
Jimi Hendrix, Jesus,
Just Jesus and Hendrix ripping solos.
It'd be cool. We've had some mild associations with the White, Jack White and stuff. It'd be cool if we did something.
Yeah.
That'd be sick.
I thought about we could do a 3-piece called White Death.
Sick.
That's a good idea.
That'd be sick.
Yeah. That's a great.
I
idea.
pitched it to his world, and they were like, cool. A cool email.
Just like thumbs up.
Yeah, cool email.
Good idea, man.
But wouldn't that be sick?
That'd be insane.
If there was a 3-piece band and it was
You guys.
That'd be
White Stripes,
absolutely
Jack White, and
insane.
Death from Above.
Yeah.
You're just like the rhythm section.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
We endorse it.
yeah, we definitely endorse that.
All we have to do is an EP.
Yeah.
It's not like we have to change our lives
Yeah, just
over
a
it.
simple,
How do we get
simple
this- how
record
do we
store
can-
day release
Yeah, how do we get
on,
this?
on Third Man Records.
Yeah.
I wanted to also talk a little bit about your studio on Ossington,
Yep.
because that again seems to me. Well, first of all, what years was that in operation?
I mean, it's still around.
Okay, but when it was you and Jimmy,
We bought that house in 2006 or 7, 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was looking to buy a house in Toronto, and pretty soon realized I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
And then, especially like in this area,
Yeah.
like I was, with all due respect, I was looking on the East End because it was a little bit more reasonable at that time. You could get a dog shit house there for dog shit prices instead of a dog shit house here for fucking like millionaire prices.
I can't get that anywhere,
But we were, so I was very good friends with Jimmy from Metric, and we'd done, we had a cool history with them. Like we were playing in Sudbury, and I went to I think Records on Wheels. I forget what the record store is in Sudbury, but I went into the record shop in Sudbury, and there was a record playing, and I thought, oh, this is cool. Like it was like a cool, very cool produced, like dry, in the Strokes world sounding to me record. And then there was like a female voice playing over this synth melody. I was like, that's cool. I was into Ladytron and Stereolab and these kinds of things. So it sounded like it was in that world. And then I asked the guy, I was like, what is this? He goes, this band Metric. I was like, oh, cool. And the record was like CD was like $35. Like, this is, and I turned around at a Factor label. I was like, the government paid for this record. I'm still getting charged $35 for it. I'm not buying this. I'm not buying this. But it always stuck with me, and I wanted to hear that song again. And then I found out who they were, and we ended up being on the same record label.
Yeah.
And we would do things like, we would open for them in the States, and they would come to the UK and open for us because we already had set a little stage for ourselves over there. There was a nice little back and forth, and we had some amazing times together. And so we were pretty close, and he also was looking to buy something. Yeah. And I was like already, biking around the East End looking for houses. And then he was like, well, let's try to do, why don't we buy something and build a studio? Yeah. And we were probably at Sweaty Betty's when we talked about it. Yeah. And then we talked to this like local real estate agent guy, and he said, oh, there's like 2 places on Ossington. Yeah. Across the street, basically. And we went and looked at them.
And you're like, done.
And it was, we could, one Canadian musician couldn't buy a house, but two Canadian musicians could buy a house, and no one would give us money. Like you couldn't, look how cool my band is.
Yeah.
Like a bank wasn't like,
Nice
message board, bro.
Like cool
Factors not
press.
helping.
Yeah,
buy
yeah,
houses.
they were not into it. So we had to go with some like third-rate bank that no one had ever heard of and get some weird mortgage that sucked. But then we did a whole thing. We built places to live and built a studio and then tried. It quickly kind of became Metric Studio. We tried to do a commercial thing, but neither one of us was very good at managing something like that. So it had a little era of people coming in and using it as a weird loophole to get factor money, and and it was cool, and it was, for me, it was more like it was like an education in gear, because I'd never, even when we did the Death from Above stuff, I didn't engage technically with the records. I only had experience with 4-track tape recording and a little bit of computer recording.
Okay.
And so I was actually pretty intimidated by the studio, even though it was in my backyard. And I also had that thing of, when you're at that age, it was like I was drinking a lot, and it was always like, even going from like, waking up at 2, the idea of like having to go even down there was, so I would end up recording stuff in my house,
still just
in my apartment,
and
it was like a domain that I was familiar with and I could understand. It wasn't intimidating, but I made records, and I made solo
So
records.
did you end up like, because I'm always curious, because I'm similar to you, where I know a bit of stuff now, but I still have more of that like songwriter mentality versus like,
I went into it like I'm
okay.
more, I can, like I did all of the engineering and producing and everything on the last Death from Above record, and I have that
sick. Okay.
knowledge now, through the years, just acquired it,
And but that's what I'm saying. It's like always that funny thing where you don't. It can seem so daunting at the beginning, where you're just like, no, I just fucking like play, and then you're like, wait, no, I need to figure out how to make like kick drum sound.
Well,
cool.
I'm also I'm good with my hands and learning how to do stuff and technical stuff. I'm not great with like reading an instruction manual or but I'm good at figuring it out. So when I started making a little bit of money, with Death from Above, I bought a bunch of gear because I wanted to start recording, and I bought gear in a way that would be easy for me to use. I didn't I just built a mobile recording studio basically.
So do you now have a studio in Lucknow?
I don't have one yet.
Okay.
Just because our we've been in this crazy renovation that I'm like heavily involved in. So that's been like it's satiated all of my creative and like problem solving things. Right. Which, for a Death from Above music fan might sound like shit, because I'm not making music, but I'm like, it satisfies every little, because I see music as a problem that needs to be solved. Like, even in the sculptural sense, it's like it's a raw material that has something inside it that I need to go.
And you have to figure out.
And that's what this project like has felt like to me as well. So it's hitting all the right buttons. But all of my gear is like pushed up against a wall in the basement, and I have to take it out. I have to start working, because we've got like Death from Above stuff to do, and so I will soon be forced, which is great. I need to. So
the plan is to build some sort of the basement or something.
For now, and maybe some other kind of room later. But
that's it. Exciting. So hold on. So speaking about the future, what's next in the world of you and both Death from Above and, because
Death from Above, I don't know if I will disclose our specific plans, but we are going to celebrate the 20th anniversary of You're a Woman, I'm a Machine. We're going to do it with a tour that celebrates that, plus some releases.
Sick.
So that's kind of the focus now, is like setting that up. And invariably we'll end up making new music, because if we have the facility set up and the means, then it'll happen. And I have, if I was smart with my quote unquote career, I would have like maintained a solo career the whole time. But I at some point in the, like when I would say like around the physical world, like the comeback record, I took ownership of the band in a sense. I was like, we had this mentality that it was because we were broken up for so long and it still existed in the ether and people were discovering it and you know, it had a life of its own. We treated it as something separate from us. Like this is something, it's not us, it's something separate that we have to honor and blah, blah, blah. Or it's a third thing or whatever. And so I approached it in this kind of democratic way where I was like, well, every decision has to be made together and everything has to be together. And if I'm going to post anything, we have to ask him, you know, like there was all this.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, I just took ownership of it. I was like, oh no, this is my band. Not in a sense that it's not his band. But I decided that we should engage with it or get whatever we want from it individually, you know? And so if he wants to, whatever he wants to do is good, you know, and whatever if I want to do more, if I want to do you know, but I took ownership of it. Like that's how I see it. I see it as my band. Yeah. Not in a,
I get it.
Yeah. I think that's,
You view it less as the entity and more of a piece of you. It's it's me. It's me and it's you.
Yeah.
It's not like that.
And there's a total, you know, it's undeniable that we cannot do it without one another. You know, there's no, I will write whole Death from Above songs sometimes, you know, but it's never quite the same, you know?
Right.
And it's and I also, when I'm writing them, I'm writing for him. It's not like I'm writing some
arbitrary
solo thing or whatever, you know, like I'm writing, it's like, what would sound cool for him to play?
Right.
And vice versa. Although he writes crazy metal parts that I can't play.
Are you then with solo stuff? Like, is that something that you do want to like?
I have a kind
into?
of a private project in the sense that like I don't want to talk about it too much.
Okay.
But I had a very profound experience with like the universe presenting me with a creative opportunity.
Okay.
I can't get into it too much, but
sounds insane.
But I basically asked God for a path, and then it was shown to me in a very clear way,
Sick.
in a very strange way. That, as like someone who pretended to be an atheist for many years, it was shocking to see that world is open. Anyway, so
talk to Austin about that.
That's my shit.
That's literally his shit.
Cool. Well,
I LARPed as an atheist for a very long time until it hit me.
Well, at the very least, what hits you is that atheism is a belief that there's nothing.
Exactly.
And you have to be very fucking arrogant.
To
have that belief. Right. So at the very least, go like,
maybe
I'm not
wrong.
sure.
I'm
not sure.
That's the main thing is maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. It's humility. And it's and you know, I don't know about all of the great world religions, but in, you know, humility and doubt is built into Christianity in a way, and whatever, we live in kind of a proto-Christian society, so it's like it's built in there. It says it, you know, it's like you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to be like, I don't know. You know, so like the atheist project is built into the the structure of it anyway. So the whole, you know, anyway. I convened with the divine, and it gave me something that was not what I would have asked for if I was like at a sushi restaurant. They gave me the thing to check off the box. I'd be like, I want this, this, and this. You know, if someone gave me like what you want with your life, and that's not what I got. I got something else. Anyway, it's a project that I'm working on actively in the background,
and just to be clear, it's musical, right?
It's musical, it's musical.
We'll give you that.
I mean, with an answer like that, I mean, it could have been.
I'm thinking about buying some land out in Omaha and maybe getting some people to live with me, and you know, I've got some things to say. I've got some of my own some fresh ideas.
I mean, the way
I was thinking Texas might be a good place to, you know.
The way that was set up, it really could have gone cult route pretty quickly.
Hey, look,
I don't have the temperament. I don't have the temperament.
Damn. Well, I think that's a great way to end this.
That's perfect.
I think that was a perfect.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
That was really fun.
Awesome. Thanks for the mic.
Oh yeah,
for the mic.
anytime.
And the cord.
Thanks for.
It's a good one.
Thanks for the memories. You know? Seriously, it's been fucking 20 years of
Yeah.
listening to your music.
I will say this is like how we came to be in each other's presence. Like when I first was aware of you was kind of through Andrew and through Josh, and I guess you guys were playing together or something. There was
I was in a band called Little Girls. Andrew was the guitar player.
Yeah,
and we were on Paper Bag.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Was on Paper Bag at the time.
So like I kind of had to be rehabilitated after the first era of Death from Above. Like I didn't really live in a social scene in the city. You know, like I went from floating around like after high school and working and living in Montreal, and like came back to Toronto, and then like pretty much right away like started the band with Jesse, and so that was like my world. And then when we broke up and I like moved downtown with Eva, and I was like kind of rehabilitating into like the social scene, you know. And I remember not long after this, 2008 or 2007 or something, like seeing you around and thinking that like, oh, like this is a cool guy, and he probably thinks like I probably, you know, my impression, because it was probably shyness or something, but like my impression was like, oh, this guy probably thinks I'm a loser. You know,
Damn,
dude, I had the
so
exact same
out.
thing, but about you, I was like, I was always joking, being like, this is really embarrassing, but the one moment when we like became like friends, and we'd like say hi and see at coffee, whatever, we'd all be like around. When you were like in my orbit, that was a moment when I was like, I think I finally made it.
Oh God. That's hilarious.
But in like a music thing, when because it was still like, you know, you're not that much older than me, but there's still that thing where when we were talking about the kids seeing their first band, you weren't the first band I ever saw, but like that was such a important. Those were important shows to me that like brought me to where I am, to then come full circle and be like, oh, I'm like literally having a coffee with this guy right now. It was like one of those things.
Yeah, and I thought you were having the opposite experience. It wasn't until we were. It was not that long ago. We were like in a car with Harrison and Talvi going between places or something. We were like maybe TIFF or something. It was not long ago, maybe 5-6 years ago.
Yeah. Whoa, I forgot.
And like
about that.
we were in this car, and then you were like, well, I loved your band. I was like, you did? I thought you thought it was
took him that long to say it.
Yeah, like and like drunk into the back of a car, like in the back of an Uber.
Yeah, it was definitely took long, and you know, I had plenty of drinks at that point. I was like, I gotta tell this guy how I really feel.
Oh my God,
man, that's so
I'm really
funny.
gonna give this guy a piece of my mind. I fucking love your band. I was like, okay, that's cool. That's a plot twist.
10 years later,
plot twist.
This is a
By the
lesson
way.
in openness with people. We can all get past those insecurities.
It's pretty classic Toronto.
It really
like,
is. Yeah, people always
just carry
There's
some
a front.
kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, because it's the classic, like no one will ever make the first.
We're all shy.
Yeah, no one ever makes the first move. Everyone just goes like, I'm just gonna wait until that guy tells me that he likes me.
Yeah. Hilarious.
Damn. All right.
Well, here we are.
Here we
Here
are.
we go.
Potting.
I know. We did it. We finally did
Potty
it.
time.
There we go.
Sick. All right.
Thanks again.
The end?
This is the end.
Unless you want to keep going.
We can keep going if you want.
I don't have anything to say.
I think we covered all my. Yeah. There's one last question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was the title "Sexy Results"?
Yeah.
Is that a Simpsons reference?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
Simpsons reference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure. I always
Yeah,
wanted to ask that, because there is also a weird. The only other band I can think of who ever had a Simpsons reference song is Yola Tango with
familiar.
Let's Save Tony Orlando's House.
Huh.
Is it Troy McClure?
Yeah.
You might remember me from something. And
There's a lot of like, you know, I'm a fan of jokes, you know, putting humor in.
Yeah.
Like not, you know, I take the song seriously, but there's like,
Yeah.
there'll be like Jay-Z quotes and Simpsons references.
I do think it takes a lot of confidence to have a sense of, not even sense of humor, but to have even the slightest bit of like fun, because
We talk about this all the time. Yeah.
for so many years it was and still, like, it just really depends on, I guess, who you are. But you know, there's always going to be the like cool guy band, and they take it very seriously, and they don't smile, they don't make jokes or like whatever. And like, sure, that's fine, that's cool, but whatever. But like, you know what I mean? I always thought there's a level of like confidence to be like, no, we can have like you can wink at the audience a little.
There's
bit.
There's a fine line though. Like I've seen bands where they bring like van humor to the stage, and it's just this like little circle jerk on stage. It's like doesn't no one cares about roll up the rim to win, bro.
Yeah.
Like it's not funny.
Yeah.
You know, you've seen that, but like in the early era, I guess I was like very much into like making people laugh on stage, like between show, like banter stuff.
Yeah.
And I would think about it in the van. I'd be like, okay, I can do this, like working up bits, like routines.
Yeah.
Not like, because also we played with bands that would, they would do the same. They would say the same thing every night.
Right.
Yes.
You know,
which is something you. It's one of those. That's one of those really small things that only if you've ever toured,
Yeah.
do you
notice,
realize that like more often than not, it's
Yeah.
like so rehearsed to the point of like
Like I'll get into like on the last tour, I developed this bit about like our like saucier songs being banned in Canada, and then, like the CBC like banning like the IPs, and like there's like, you know, like a firewall against some of our music. Like I just over the course of the tour, I just developed this bit, and I had it so dialed in that I was like, I just want to keep working on it. Like it was
Keep
it was a
expanding.
routine that I worked out.
That's sick.
But it wasn't like I wrote it and then I said it every night. I was like developing it, you know,
was getting
on the
developed.
fly. And
I guess-
so, and there was a whole era where I just stopped saying stuff on stage. Like I just completely stopped. We had a sampler between songs. I would play weird things. I was like, we're going to take ourselves seriously. But also I was like, I guess afraid to say stuff. I don't know. It was like a very sensitive time or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why I chose that path, but then I started doing it again. It's fun.
Well, it also adds a level of like, you know,
I like to be. I like
connection.
everyone. Yeah, I want everyone to be in on it. You know.
Yeah.
I want everyone to be in on it. There's even if I'm calling someone out.
Yeah.
Like I called someone a Ninja Turtle from the stage, you know, the other night. And last night I was telling bros to like turn it down to
turn it to
7. And all
7,
that. But I'm not like I don't not like bros. You know, I think bros are cool. You know, I'm into it. I'm just like, you know, we can all do that together. You know?
Well, I feel like there was an extra, even like last night, there was an extra air of intensity because of that.
because of the hockey game.
because of
Yeah,
the hockey
true.
game. So there was like this.
It's
like,
fine. It's fine.
but
It's
then you
better
were
than
kind
I
of-
played a show in Montreal and there was a hockey game going on and they pushed doors because they're just like, well, no one's going to show up until the game's over.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
it really
that's how
controls
badly
this country.
yeah, it's affecting our lives. Like we
It's
have-
insane. The amount of like dudes at the bar that just like in the midst of like everyone else is just having a good conversation, they're watching the game and they just scream out loud in the middle. Like, and it's like, it's so jolting that everybody's like, what happened?
What is
And it
going
doesn't
on?
sound fun. The screams,
pretty fun.
but-
It's good. It's a proxy for war.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
like-
That's exactly what it
it's
is.
fine.
We need those
Yeah.
outlets.
Yeah, we need them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's better than the alternative.
Yeah.
Very true.
Very true.
Damn.
Anything else, guys?
I think we're good.
Yeah.
I think we got it.
No special guests.
No special
Not gonna-
guests.
Norman's not going to walk in.
Yeah, where's Norman? Norman should be walking.
Well,
in
Norman's
right
classic Norman. He's like, I was like, Sebastian's coming on the party. He's like, yeah, I know. I was like, what? Like he just like has to be in the know of like everything.
We've spent a lot of time together recently. He lent me a camera for the shows.
Oh, wait,
now.
that's
Oh yeah, you guys
let's
were
talk
shooting
about that
something,
quick.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This will be the last thing.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to edit out these. All right. But I got time. Yeah, you were explaining, or actually Jamie was explaining yesterday that you guys had like GoPros, I think, attached to you.
No, we
and,
just had them on stage, like in different areas. Yeah, I saw this as an opportunity to our front of house guy JB. He records every show, but no one cares about live records. Like it's not, it has to have a visual component to it.
Yeah.
And the last tour, I felt like was our best tour. Like I felt like we were playing the best. I was, there was a period in the middle of the tour where I was sick and it was hard for me to sing, but I was like able to do stuff that I'd never been able to do with my voice. I was like, it's exactly what I want out of this, And so I wanted to document that. It wasn't as good as the tour, but like we were playing well. We're like in a good phase, and I wanted to document this phase in anticipation also of like going back to the UK and doing all these things and kind of trying to create the visual story or like add to it. Because I also was like looking at footage of us, and I'm adding a video component to our website, and it's like it's part of the band is what it looks like and how it is, and
documenting these shows in particular.
And these, well, it's an opportunity because we're in the same venue every night, so you can do something where you can just like record it, and if you have to edit something together, you can do it, and you get a lot of opportunity to do things, so yeah, I borrowed a bunch of GoPros, and Norman lent me his 360 cam, which worked mostly. It's incredible technology.
Yeah,
it's like
shit's
sat
insane.
up there, and it's got two lenses, and then when it's stitched together, you can just like scroll around and like it's not like it's all fisheye and weird. It's like it looks like a video. But you can move around. It's so cool.
That's sick.
Yeah.
So you are gonna release this in some capacity.
Yeah. My intention when I started was to edit all myself, and last night Jamie was like, "You're an insane person. There's gonna be like a terabyte of data."
You're like, "Yeah, I'm gonna edit it," and Jamie was like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. We were talking. Yeah. He's like, "I've got a young kid who works for peanuts." I love that concept. And then we got into child labor. Yeah, we got into child labor.
All right, sick. I think now we're good.
Yeah,
we got it.
Thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
this
thank
has
you.
been
Thanks for having
a
me.
real pleasure.
Peace.